There it is, being chased by what looks like a fork-tailed drongo. That long tail immediately tells us it's a juvenile harrier hawk, even though it is brown, not grey in colour. And off it flies. We've spent many hours being entertained by the antics of these birds. They're professional nest raiders. They'll go and find hollows in trees and they'll dig their legs in and search for things like baby birds, chicks, baby bush babies, squirrels, anything like that that might be inhabiting the hollows of trees. Naturally, that makes them the least popular bird of prey out here. I don't think there is any other bird species that gets as much attention from the other birds as harrier hawks do. They get chased, mobbed, picked at. Even when they're just sitting, they inspire the ire of various birds. I just want to see if it's going to come back. I think it was intent on raiding the nest of the lapwings. Here we go. Aaron, while we watch our juvenile harrier hawks seek out his next target, let's go have a look and see if it's landed there. Aaron, yes, certain birds do have some trees they like to nest in, vultures, for example. White-backed vultures like knobthorns, hooded vultures prefer jackalberries or fig trees, something with lots of cover. Leadwoods make very, very good homes because they're less likely to rot, but at the same time it's harder to excavate a leadwood. Whereas a marula tree is convenient for, can hear it being mobbed again, is convenient for hollowing out. So barbets, for example, will often nest because the wood is soft, they can scrape it out with their beaks. Oh, I hope our signal holds out. I really want to show you this harrier hawk. You can hear the furious reactions of the other birds. Let's stop and hope our signal holds out. Where is it gone? There it is. Dave, can you see through that leadwood? You got it. I don't want to move, but there it is, and it's in. What is it in there? The nest of something, I think. Might even be a buffalo weaver's nest. Not a very convenient position for this bird. You can see in the way it's holding its wings. It's after something in there. Well, angry birds attacking it, trying to defend their nest. I think that was a buffalo weaver. It is a buffalo weaver's nest. Rebecca, do you think we can nudge forward ever so slightly to get a better view? Can we try it? Can we risk it? It's being mobbed furiously, and this is very, very cool to see. There we go. That's better. Oh, stay. Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. So it's trying to get into that buffalo weaver's nest, and you can understand now the construction and the way that buffalo weavers build their nests in that messy style that they do, using very thorny trees, because it makes an almost impenetrable bundle. They know where their secret entrances are. They can zip in and zip out. They're small and agile enough, but for something like a harrier hawk, although this one seems quite determined, it does present a rather whoopsie daisy. Did you have a misstep there, mister? Or Mrs.? Miss. It's a juvenile. I'm surprised there aren't more birds responding to this. Can hear them frantically alarm calling. Oh, no, not today. That buffalo weaver's nest is just too thorny. Onto the leadwood. Right, I'm going to sit with this harrier hawk a little bit longer and watch what it gets up to. Oh, it's getting chased by the birds. While we do, let's go across to James, who's got a very beautiful antelope.
We're having a very nice time here with some nyalas. Relatively large herd of them, probably about 15 animals, just crossed over the Mlwamati drainage line, on their way, I think, to Chelapan for a drink, which is just up in that direction there where you're looking now. and all is beautiful peace here. Now, we had tracks of a male leopard around here. Could have been Tingana. We know Mvula was around here the other day. He was having a fight with Tingana, which was quite interesting. In fact, very interesting. So maybe he's around here. But for now, we're just going to enjoy whatever we see. This is my favorite antelope that we get here. I couldn't really tell you why. I find their presence, I suppose, you know why? It's because they're always sitting in very pleasant environments. The bush not too thick, but they like to be in sort of thickest shaded areas, so it's always cool and nice and green wherever the nyala are. As Wim was saying, that is a spotty nyala. And he wasn't referring, of course, to any kind of skin condition or acne that, some of us were afflicted with as youngsters. He's referring to the fact that it looks a little bit like a bushbuck. Well, they all seem to be quite spotty. Maybe it's just the first time we've noticed it. I often find that when we're looking at animals, I'll notice something for the first time, even though I've seen the animal hundreds of times. And often a characteristic that somebody else has noticed, many years ago, and then I feel embarrassed. And the one behind's definitely a bit spottier. I know Tristan was talking about late nesting birds. It's almost unusual now to hear them because we're so late into the summer that most of the cuckoos and things have stopped calling. They've all bred, they've all laid their dastardly eggs inside the nests that they didn't build. They've cuckolded those nests, and so it's quite unusual to hear them calling now. I heard a red-chested cuckoo about a week ago, the Diedrich's cuckoo, same thing, and now one black cuckoo saying, "I'm so sad." There is a cuckoo. You see it there, Wim? In the middle of the gory bush there. I think that is a junior Levallian's cuckoo. Maybe it's not a junior, because the junior will have been raised by a flock of arrow-marked babblers. And the funniest thing in the world is to watch one of these things with its flock of arrow-marked babblers, because they're twice the size of an arrow-marked babbler, and it's hilarious to watch a flock of babblers that thinks they are with one of their own. The reason I say it's juvenile, it looks a bit scruffy, and also it's not quite as white as an adult would be on the front. Joey, this is a relatively easy question to answer. I think I'm correct in saying that the smallest bird in southern Africa, which is what you wanted to know, is something called a grey penduline tit. A grey penduline tit, it's certainly the smallest bird that we get here. I can't offhand think of a smaller one. I'll quickly show it to you. Under T for tit, as opposed to G for grey penduline. It might be under P for penduline though, because it's not with the normal tits. Hang on a second. Sorry about this, Joey. I'll get there, I promise. 364. You'd swear I'd never looked at this book before. Right, there he is there. The African or grey penduline tit. They are 8 centimeters long. That is very tiny. 8 centimeters is about, just over 6 inches. 7 inches. Tiny little birds. Can't think of anything smaller. I'll just quickly check the sunbirds. I wonder if a white-bellied sunbird is... No, 11 centimeters. Even a collared sunbird is 10 centimeters. So I'm going to go, Joey, with grey penduline tit. There goes the cuckoo, and so do we. We may lose signal in here, Rebecca. I will do my best not to lose any signal in here. I think we're all right. We should be okay to the junction. Right, let's head across to Tristan, who has good signal.
Indeed we do, James. We have nice signal because we're right up on the ridge at the moment. So it's very, very good up here, which is good for us and I suppose good for everybody else too. So still looking around, there's not been any further sign of critters. It's starting to get quite warm now, so I don't think they're going to be too active for now. But I'm sure they're somewhere in this area. They've obviously found themselves a really nice spot to rest and relax, and so I'm sure they are here. It'll just be a matter of finding them at some point. But I've been looking around even for insects and small little things, and it hasn't actually been too much. It's been the odd butterfly flying around and the odd bird, but otherwise very quiet on the insect front even. I've been looking around to see if we could find anything. And as I'm talking about it, so just looking here, there's some beautiful little red flying insects that I'm hoping will stop so I can actually get an ID on them. I don't know if you can see it there, Craig. So hopefully it will land. They don't seem to want to land, but they are very, very pretty. There we go. So just here on the edge of the thorn. So look at the coloration on that little red flying. Oh, and it's flown off. So I wonder what they're busy feeding off on here. There's a torchwood that is growing inside here, and I don't know what they would be feeding on. There's no real fruit at the moment. There's no sap coming out, but they're definitely attracted to them. There's quite a number of them hovering about, quite a few ants as well. So maybe it could be something to do with the ants. Maybe that's why they're here. But I don't see any more. I'm trying to see if there's any sort of sticky residue coming out, or if there's any reason why they would be on here, but nothing that I can actually see. Maybe it's just a good tree to hang out, and this is where the insect party is today. There's a couple flies on here as well, so it's possible that that's the reason. I doubt it's the real reason, but that's the reason we're going to go with, because I can't find any sort of nectar or any sort of substance that would be attracting them in here. There's no sort of leaf damage from caterpillars, and that particular type of insect is not going to have a caterpillar anyway, so no sign of anything on there that I can actually see why they would be attracted to it. Alright, so like I say, we're still kind of looking around and trying to see if there's any signs of anything that could be of interest. It's also always having a look out for any elephant tracks. They really are quite nice to try and see if you can get close to on foot and try and get a nice visual on them, but there's been very little of that as well, and no real fresh signs of elephants this morning. So all in all, other than the tracks for the leopards, a little bit on the quiet side, which just happens. These things do happen from time to time. The bush can't give us everything every day, so we've been extremely lucky in the last few weeks with great sightings. So Soraya, you're asking if the drought has affected the bird population. Now, as far as I've seen, no. Certain species of birds haven't been here very much, and those are normally your birds associated with water. So because we haven't had huge amounts of rain, there's not really enough cover for some of the bird species that we would see. So things that I'm talking about are like painted snipes, black crakes, those kind of birds that are really associated with wetland and watery areas. In 2012, when we had a lot of floods here, we had a lot of those kind of birds, and this year has been a little bit thin with those, but otherwise the birds have been good. We've had good numbers of pretty much everything. The only one that really hasn't come through that normally does in big numbers is the carmine bee-eaters. Their numbers have been a little bit thin this year, not too many, and in all likelihood it's probably because I know in Botswana They had fairly decent rains up there in Zambia, and so probably find that on their migration southwards from those areas, they've just got caught up with the good insect production up there, and down here has not been so great, and so for them it's better to spend time up there. So they're the only ones that really haven't arrived in full swing. The rest of the migratory birds have all come in good numbers. We had good European rollers this year, lots and lots of cuckoos, good Wahlberg's eagles, lesser spotted eagles. The other one also that, funny enough, hasn't been too active this year has been the steppe eagles. The steppe eagles, funny enough, have also been quite scarce. I haven't seen too many of them. Again, they are sort of one of those migratory birds that does rely on rain a little bit, so maybe with the lack of really big rains, that's why we haven't seen too many of them. They do fly a long way. I mean, they come all the way, some of them from the steppe mountains in Russia, and so, you know, they could have been caught up somewhere where there was a little bit more rain. But it's interesting to see that we've had other bird species, things that we typically wouldn't get here. There's been lots of rarities in South Africa that have arrived from all over the world that typically we wouldn't see. So it's potentially due to the fact that we had a drought and then we've had a bit of rain afterwards, and so there's maybe plant species that have grown or insects that have come out that these guys like, or we've had really big weather systems offshore that has led to the fact that some of these birds have been pushed in. I know there's been some pictorial sandpipers down in the Western Cape, which are generally around the Arctic Circle. That's where they like to be, so that's quite far away. So there've been lots of those kind of birds. We had that golden pipit here in the Sabi Sands, which is also not a bird we see very often. So it's been interesting to see with the drought. There has been some interesting birds that have arrived with the dryness. I know that in the Kalahari region of South Africa, where it's very, very, very dry, we've had quite good rains there this year. So this time last year it was barren, there was no grass, it was very hot, very dry, and this year they've had really good rains, and that's brought about all kinds of strange birds into the desert area. So you wouldn't really associate water birds with a desert, but they've had all kinds of crakes and herons and all these birds that you typically wouldn't see there. So interesting how birds have adapted to the drought. It would be actually quite interesting to study the numbers of certain species and try and work out exactly how many we've had of things like rollers and that, and whether or not we actually have had more or less than periods of wet weather. Alright, so while we carry on, we're going to go back to James and see what he's got for us.
That's all I've got for you, everybody. That's all I've managed to find the whole day, is 2 human beings stricken. And if you look at Rusty's front wheels, you will notice a problem. You'll notice that one is heading towards Cheetah Plains and the other is heading towards the Buffelshoek Dam. Now those 2 places are very, very far removed from each other, and you will find that a car in such conflict with itself is going to be unable to travel any further today. We are going to send a small punnet of gooseberries out here for David and Jamie to eat, and once we've done that, we hope that they will be able to fix the car at some stage. Word on the street is that something might have hit the steering rod at some stage, either yesterday or today. This is what happens out here when you have to follow things off-road. Alright, we're going to carry on down to the Chitwa Dam. We're not far from there. Tristan will give you a little bit more while we extricate ourselves from here. Move in.
So we will try our hardest, James, to entertain you as much as possible. And since Rusty has got a little bent steering arm, has died on us, we thought we'd show you this dead young buffalo. So this is probably another one of the drought victims. We're talking about drought with the birds and whether it's affected them. So this is one of the buffalo, the many buffalo that succumbed to the drought this last year. And remember, it was about August, September, we had really a crazy amount of buffalo that died. I had guests with me actually for 3 days, and in the 3 days we saw over 20 buffalo die due to the drought. So the reason is that most of them were in such bad condition that when the rain came in September and October, the grass was just so rich that when they ate it, they basically got diarrhea and died from it. So you ended up with a lot of dead buffalo. This particular one is quite young, which is interesting because out of all of the dead buffalo that I saw in this drought, 90% of them were either big males or old females. There was very few young ones like this. So this actually could have been one that was preyed upon, but I doubt it, because if you have a look here, if I turn it over, you can see as we come down to the face area and the nose structure, there has been no eating of that. Alright, had this been a carcass from a predator, things like lion, leopard, hyenas, they would have actually eaten away that nose section, and you would have had some sort of breaking of the bone in front here. This would have all been chomped away. You can actually see some of the flesh, so in all likelihood this was a drought victim. And unfortunately for them, like I say, there was quite a few of them. These younger ones, the reason why they actually managed to survive a little bit better was because they weren't really used to that dry grass. A lot of them were still suckling as they kind of came through that drought, and so their condition was actually a little bit better than some of the adults, and they managed to get through it a lot easier than what the adults did. But like I say, these are plentiful at the moment. There are lots and lots and lots of them. You can see over time things are starting to shift and move. If you have a look on this side, you'll see the rest of the skeleton is kind of spread out here. Now, when they dried during the drought, everything would have been just together and there wouldn't have been too much movement because there was just so many dead carcasses that the scavengers couldn't keep up. So things like hyena and vultures were absolutely stuffed. They couldn't eat anything more, and so you ended up with a situation where the carcasses just sat for days. But now over time, and every time there's a bit of rain, the scent will start again and there'll be a bit of a dead smell, and things like hyenas will come and scatter them about a little bit and play around, particularly young hyenas. Once they realize that this is kind of some sort of food source, or was a food source, the smell makes them kind of come in and they play around with the bones, and you end up being dragged all over the place. So in a year's time you'll probably find very little of this actually left. Maybe a bit of the skull, but everything else would have been shifted and moved. But very nice. Like I say, these skeletons are quite nice to see because generally in these sort of areas we very seldom see any sign of these carcasses. The buffalo's carcass, and to see its actual skeletal structure all together is quite an interesting thing. So nice is probably not the right word, but interesting to see, and to see how it's all held together. I know Jamie at one point was thinking about trying to put one together and try and complete the whole carcass, which would be really quite interesting. I think maybe we'll have to give her a hand with that and see if we can do it. It'd be quite something to have a life-size skeleton of a buffalo. I don't think we'll get an opportunity again, given that we've had a bit of rain, so I don't think we'll have too many problems this year. Right, so we're going to carry on. I'm going to go back to James, who I believe has left Jamie with her strawberries and blueberries. And I'll tell you what, if I was Jamie, I'd be thrilled with it. It's a beautiful morning. To sit with a punnet of strawberries would not be the worst thing. So I think James is back at work, and we'll see what he gets up to.
I've got some very cross birds and a very cross squirrel here. Look over there. Standing on the top of a knobthorn tree very close by to us. Those are magpie shrikes, which you saw earlier with Jamie. They're the squirrels now on top. And I don't know what he's shouting at. I suspect a snake, or perhaps a bird of prey. No, it wouldn't be sitting up there if there was a bird of prey. And I'm reticent to just move forward I mean, I don't know, you probably can't see that one with your camera, can you? The bird on top there? Yeah, there we go. These are all young magpie shrikes. This is fascinating, actually. Of course, it's very difficult to tell where the squirrel is looking because they can see sort of 270 degrees. He's so cross. I don't really know why I find that so amusing, but I always do. There it goes. Let's just go. Well, I'll try and go forward without them all freaking out. Oh, we'll just roll. There we go. That's the best way to go. A la electric vehicle. What one doesn't want to see is a great big mamba come herring out of the bush. One would be inclined to say bad words. Oh, there's the squirrel now on the ground. Idiot. Michael, yes I did. You're saying, did I just say that squirrels can see 270 degrees? Yes, I'd say probably about 270 degrees. They can see all the way in front of themselves if their eyes are over here, right? This is the case with most animals that see on the sides of their, with eyes on the sides of their heads. They sacrifice depth of perception apparently, but they can see all the way from the front. There might be a slight gap in front, and they see all the way around to about there, so about 270 degrees. Does that make sense? Probably about 170 degrees. Zebra's 82. Oh, the camera's 82. Jeff, you're wondering, I've lost your question there because I was thinking about angles. Can we have it again? I'm sorry, Rebecca. I do apologize. Why?
To talk about even. Like, I haven't found many insects or... So welcome back, guys. I believe James is now having a few technical little gremlins as well. So these things happen out here. It's pretty interesting to watch and to see how these things go, and unfortunately, being that we are live, sometimes difficult to iron out all the technical glitches. And then obviously Rusty has now got a sore leg, so he's limping around a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get everything sorted and get back out, and at least we're out here and doing our thing, which is really, really good. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful day. Craig and I have been chatting about how nice it is this morning, and the weather is very, very pleasant. And luckily for us, there's a bit of a breeze that's come up, and so it's a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to get blasted by the sun. When I woke up this morning, it was clear, clear skies. There wasn't a breath of wind, and I thought we were in for a real hot one. But luckily for us, the wind has come up, and all is quite good. So it's actually very pleasant out here at the moment. And I'm quite surprised as we've been walking around today. We've covered quite a bit of distance, and we've gone through some quite thick areas, and I'm very surprised at the lack of spiders. So we generally see quite a few spiders, particularly on the small Waltherias, which are a type of sort of shrub. And I was hoping that walking through these big thick block areas that we would get quite a few orb webs, but so far none. I haven't seen any orb webs this morning. And we were talking about the drought and the effect that it had on birds. Probably the orb web is one of the ones that we really have seen a noticeable decline. If you came here in 2012, 2013 and walked through an area like this, you would be absolutely covered from head to toe in their webs. They would be everywhere here, lots and lots of them. And this year and last year, very, very few. So I haven't seen any this morning, which is a real big surprise. I would have thought we would have had quite a few. I would have thought there would have been lots of them all over the place. Now, Craig, I don't know if you can get that butterfly that's just popped up here. So there's a small little butterfly that's on the ground, and it's called a yellow pansy. Now, there it flies. Now, the interesting thing with these yellow pansies is that they are territorial. So they're one of the few butterfly species that holds a territory. It's pretty insane given that these butterflies are not alive for very long periods of time, and so to chase off other butterflies just to hold a piece of area is pretty incredible. Now it's folded up, and you can see how well it camouflages now when those wings are closed, and that's because it spends most of its time fluttering about on the ground like this. And so if a predator is flying along and it sees that bright yellow with the blue spots on the wings, it follows that, and then all of a sudden the butterfly lands and closes the wings, and it becomes very well camouflaged. It becomes quite tough to see it. So very, very clever. And you'll see, hopefully it's going to open its wings and fly at some point. There we go. And you see those beautiful colorations on the back. Now, there is two types of pansies that we get here. We get this yellow pansy, which has got those yellow tips to the wings and the blue dots. And there's a blue pansy, which has blue pretty much throughout. There's no yellow on it, on those wing areas. And the blue dots that you see on the back of those wings are to almost basically deter predation. So it's eye spots effectively on the back, and so it makes it look as though this is a big animal that's busy watching upwards. And so things like birds see these blue spots and think, okay, this little butterfly is watching me, so I've lost my element of surprise, and then moves on to the next one. So quite a clever marking to have. So even though they are camouflaged when the wings are up, when they are flat, they also have a deterrent to stop predators eating them. So nice to see. They are quite common here. We see a lot of the yellow pansy. The blue pansy not as much, but they also are around. But the yellow pansy is really quite prevalent here. Alright, so we're going to go across to Jamie, who I believe still hasn't received her strawberries, which is disappointing. But I'm sure she'll be able to make do with a couple marulas. There are lots of marulas around. So, Jamie, if you're hungry, marulas are the way to go, I think. I think you might be waiting for those strawberries for a bit long otherwise.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed. There have been no strawberries, there's no rescue party, and my tyres are pointing in opposite directions. There's not even a marula tree around, so we can go and supplement our lack of strawberries with marulas. However, in order to give Tristan a little bit of a break and for James to refine signal, Rebecca has very kindly asked that I do 5 interesting things. 5 interesting things. Well, first of all, let's start with that bush over there. That bush over there, not that one, but the one behind it, that has been thoroughly attacked by caterpillars, and it looks as though it is a senna. It is indeed a senna. So this is the same plant that Taylor's been seeing the caterpillars on. I'm going to jump out quickly, since I probably am just being lazy. I can do 5 interesting things out of the vehicle. So this senna, there's obviously a particular species of a caterpillar that's targeting them. And I've been trying to find the cocoons of the species, because there are no more caterpillars. They've all gone. But you can see what kind of damage a group of caterpillars can do to a tree like this, just by munching off each and every single leaf. And this tree is actually relatively lucky it managed to escape. It's still got enough leaves to survive, but the senna has been almost entirely stripped. I would say 85% of it has been eaten by the caterpillars. Next. Interesting things. 5 interesting things. Oh, goodness. Something has parasitized the silver cluster leaf over here. Can you see these little dots? They actually, let me try and keep my shadow out of it. I would guess it's some kind of a fungus, but potentially there might be eggs in there. But I think it's some kind of fungus that has attacked it. And you can see some of it has actually turned a vibrant pink color, which is interesting. It seems as though silver cluster leaves have a propensity for being parasitized. Let's see if I can find a gall for you. It's a tree favored by a particular type of wasp that injects a growth hormone into the tree itself. That's not quite a gall. That might be a gall over there. So can you see it there, Darby? Here. So it injects a growth hormone into the tree. Is there a leaf in the way?
No, got
You got me. Thank you. That then allows the larvae to be protected. The tree grows around it. And then when the larvae hatches, it has a ready-made food source. There we go. Silver cluster leaf trees. I will also never eat another silver cluster leaf. ever again, having put one under the microscope and seen those tiny, tiny little red mites that live all over these leaves. It's a lovely tree. Okay, next, Natal red-top grass. One of my favorite grass species, because it's beautiful and fluffy. And it gets this beautiful rosy pink color when the seeds are ripe. Now, it's got these soft, fluffy seeds, and something that I worked out yesterday, because I didn't have what do you call them? Not a windsock. An ash bag. An ash bag. I worked out that these... Oh, well, there we go. There's the wind. These work quite well as a replacement for your ash bag. Obviously, not ideal if it's very, very light wind. But I think keeping a supply of these in your pockets might be quite a useful way of detecting which way the wind is blowing. Panicum grass. This is one of the sort of the lesser known panicums. It's the panicum. It's not Panicum maximum. It's the other one. It will come to me. But also the same as the Panicum maximum grass seeds. If you strip them and you eat them, taste like oats, tastes like muesli. It's actually really yummy and quite nutritious. Might not be strawberries, but it's not bad. What are we on for? Would you like some panicum grass, Darby? Yeah. There you go. You can have that one. It's not as nice as Panicum maximum. Next, the weeping wattle tree. One of Karula's absolute favorites. We're not far away from where she killed and dragged that impala. When was it? A couple of weeks ago. And she kept... Puh. I've got more than seeds there. Blades of grass now tickling my throat. It provides such nice dense foliage that it's the perfect hiding spot. And because nothing really gets in underneath the weeping wattles, the grass tends to be longer and more sheltered at the base of them, which means that if you're a leopard, it's the perfect place to hide. And I'm sure we have driven past her many, many times. Of course, most famously, if you find yourself stuck in the situation that we are in, and you find yourself with a desperate toilet emergency, this is probably your best alternative to a lack of toilet paper. It doesn't have any thorns. Please don't confuse it with an acacia, or you're going to have a very unpleasant time. And this is what the seed pods of not Weltheria, got Weltheria on the brain, of a pultiforum look like. The end. 5 interesting things. Rebecca, shall I throw in one as a surprise? Let me see. Have I got a 6th interesting thing to show you? There's always interesting things to see. There's always interesting... Yes, please. Yes, please, says Rebecca. Potato bush. Potato bush. This is the bush that smells like cooking potatoes. There's a very famous book on the trees and shrubs of Botswana, written by Veronica Ruert, and where she talks about the first time she encountered the smell of a potato bush. And it smells exactly like you boiling or cooking potatoes. And she talks about how she went and asked somebody what the smell was. And it was a local Tswana man, and he laughed and he pointed at the bush, and she decided that either he was crazy or perhaps he just didn't quite understand English, not realizing that in fact the flowers of a potato bush only smells at night, and it smells like cooking potato. And it's how I know, associated with being now at Safari Live, being close to home, because there's one that flowers in Yuri's garden, and every single time we drive past through quarantine, the open area outside the camp, and we get to there, it smells like cooking potatoes. Sometimes it's the potato bush, sometimes it's actually just Amanda's cooking. Right, there we go. Interesting things. I know Tristan's been talking about the drought and the effect that it's had on the bird life. And sorry.
You can link to James and Chitwa.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's lovely to see how the vegetation has recovered. Whilst I try and remove the remnants of the panicum grass from my teeth, let's go over to James and see what's happening at Chitwa Dam.
Yes, I'm not sure muesli is what that tastes like. It does have a sort of vague oaty taste to it, I suppose. But remember, I didn't say that I was going to take strawberries. I said gooseberries. We don't have any strawberries, and well, we do actually. But those that we do have, I think I'm going to have them for breakfast when I get back to camp. Right, we had a very large crocodile over there, the friend of the one living in Twin Dams, I think, and those geese just chased it into the water. They walked up to it and went and the crocodile got up and disappeared into the water. So I'm not sure why he was so afraid of those geese, what it was about what they said to him that offended him so, but he has gone. Then we have on our right hand side an enormous fish eagly. I'm afraid I can't go any further forward. Shelley, interestingly, you say, why don't we see fish eagle nests and do they migrate? We do actually see fish eagle nests, Shelley, and apparently there are 2 fish eagle nests around here. I don't know where they are. They're a platform of sticks in a tree, and I think all of the ones in this tree that we're looking at are in fact red-billed buffalo weavers' nests. But the fish eagles, I always want to call them kingfishers. The fish eagles here will have a nest somewhere around. And I'm looking, there's another one way off to the other side there that flew off, and I thought maybe there was a nest in there. But I don't think there is at this stage. Now we must remind Connor to come back here because I want to see if those eggs of the Egyptian gooses on the top of that red-billed buffalo weaver's their nest there have hatched. Let's just have a look there. You can see one of them on the nest underneath there. So if you go down from there, we're on the same one. One straight across there. Yes, there we are. There's a Jippo goose. There we are. Actually on the nest. But there is another nest on top of the other nest. There. Just inside there. There are a whole lot of eggs. There were 12 of them at last count. Right, we'll just tell you what else is going on here briefly and then we'll carry on. There are some bushbuck across the way. There's our bushbuck. No, they're nyala. There's some nyala across the way. And the hippo was laughing at my misidentification of the bushbuck of the tragelaphid species. And then we have, of course, the hippo, which I've told you about, and the collared pratincoles. There they are, waiting patiently for better days. Better days than this they're going to struggle to get. It's a wonderfully temperature today. I know Tristan said it was getting hot earlier, but I don't think it's getting very hot at all, do you, Vim? It's very pleasant. You've put your jacket back on. It's a very pleasant temperature indeed. I'm going to just do a quick reverse. We can't actually move from here right now because we'll probably lose signal. But there were a whole lot of antelope in this clearing. It's apparently 25 degrees centigrade and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. There are some waterbuck over there. Sitting very peacefully in the gentle breeze blowing in from the southeast. I'm hoping the temperature will maintain somewhere around these levels for the rest of the day. Whether that will be the case or not, I do not know. Because, of course, we are in the middle of summer. But we've had the most wonderful summer. We've had very little in the way of blinding. From here? I'm just wondering about our signal. Okay, let's quickly go across to Tristan and find out what he's doing, and then I will see you when we have further signal.
Further in this area, looks like it's all pretty quiet. Now, I believe Jamie was snacking on some grasses and showing you guys quite a number of different trees, which is nice. Hopefully she'll survive her ordeal. I'm sure she will. So as we move through here, these are prime areas for all kinds of animals to be in during the day. So we're looking for any tracks or signs in these shady little areas. It's nice and sheltered and really is very, very cool. So it's a perfect place for animals to come and spend the day. I would imagine quite a few of them are going to be coming in here. You'll find lots of the antelope species will be in here, lots to eat around here. As Jamie was saying, lots of that panicum grass, which tastes like the muesli. So if I was an antelope, that's definitely what I would go after. And then in general, like I say, it's just nice and cool in here. The only problem with being in here at the moment is there's very little breeze. If you get up slightly higher, it's nice and cool up there, but down here is very, very, very stuffy. So talking about trees and uses of trees, this particular tree that we've just come across now is quite an interesting one. It's called a guarri, a magic guarri, and these magic guarris are interesting in that there's a few different uses that they have for them. So the first thing is the magic part, and their scientific name divinorum comes from the fact that they use this to divine water. So what they would typically do is they would cut a Y-shaped branch. So this is not a very good example of a Y-shaped branch, but they would cut a Y-shaped branch and they would walk with it, and when the branch then turns downwards, they say that there would be water there. They would then excavate out and hopefully find water. I've never actually seen it work, so I don't know if it does, but there's many trackers that I've worked with that are in full belief that it does work, and they will utilize it as much as they can. But the other things that we can use it for, which is quite interesting, is that this makes an absolutely brilliant fire beater. So if we had a fire out in the bush, let's say a fire broke out, the first tree you would come to is grab this and break off a very big branch with lots of leaves, and then you can sit and beat that fire. And this sort of close cluster of leaves like this just suffocates the oxygen and makes it quite difficult then for the fire to carry on, and so you can beat the fire out pretty easily, which is really, really cool. Now the other thing that we use it for, which is probably the primary use and the one that is probably the most popular, is that they utilize this plant as a toothbrush. So basically what you would have done is you would cut a little tree like this, and then you would have taken off the edge, so you just get all that bark off, because you don't want that stuck between your teeth. The idea is to clean them, not to make them dirty. So basically just something along those lines. This is going to be a very rough one, but there we go, that's pretty pleasant. Alright, and then what you would do is either you can use two rocks and smash them together, but I'm just going to, for the purposes of this, squash it with the Leatherman. And so basically what you would do is you would squash it and get it all kind of fibrous and bristly, break up all of those fibers, and eventually it will soften. You can see already it's starting to flatten out and soften up quite nicely. And so if we keep going with this and just ply it around a little bit, we're going to get a beautiful brush. So just tease the ends out a little bit. So ideally is to do this with clean fingers, not dirty fingers like I have, which has dirtied the tips, but there we go. So basically we now have a brush, and from that you would be able to brush your teeth and get them nice and clean. So really, really interesting little plant. I was looking at this as well now, hoping that there'd also be some berries on it. The berries would be really, really good, and they're quite tasty as well, but normally the birds get in there first. So Rebecca's just whispered into my ear, the voices in my head are at it again, asking me about toothpaste. Now, we can get toothpaste in this area. I don't see one of them close by, but I will try and find a tree that we can utilize. It's called a leadwood, and the leadwood contains quite high traces of lime, and so it's really, really good for the teeth. So we'll try and find that tree and I'll try and show you. Unfortunately, making the toothpaste is a long process. The leadwood, being as hard as it is, takes a long time to burn down, and so if I had to try and light a log now, I think maybe tomorrow we would be able to get the ash for it. But maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try and burn a log during today, and tomorrow I'll get the ash out and then we'll mix it with water. And then there's another tree that we use that has a minty kind of taste to it, and so you mix that in, and then at least it tastes a little bit better, because otherwise the leadwood tastes a little bit like ash. It's not the most pleasant thing, but really, really interesting. So, David, you're asking about fire season since we were talking about it. And when is our fire season? Generally, our fire season is at the end of our winter months. So, that's normally for us around we start really getting kind of dry in around July. So, anywhere from July, August, September, and into October. And the reason why September and October are particularly bad is because as the bush gets really, really dry, we start to get a change of season and we start going out of our winter and into our summer months. And normally what arrives with that is big thunderstorms, and so we get these massive thunderstorms and quite a few lightning strikes, which then causes big fires in those times. This year we were very lucky that we actually didn't have too much of a fire risk at all, and the reason why was because of the drought. There was no grass cover, so even if we had these big electrical storms when it was so dry, there was nothing for it to burn. Alright, and so the fire risk actually, funny enough, even though it was so dry, was very, very low. This year, after a bit of rain like this, we've got quite a good covering again. We'll see what it looks like by the end of the winter, but if we do have a good covering, then it will be very high risk towards October, sort of August, September, October, that area. What have you seen, Rex? So Rex has just spotted something. What do you see? Nyala. So Rex has seen a nyala. I'm going to just try to see if we can get up. Here we go. If you come across here, Craig, you'll see. There we go. I don't know if you can see them in there. Alright, so while these nyala watch us and we watch them in the shade, we're going to go back to James and see what he's up to.
We're live, everybody. You don't need to know that, you just can see me, so I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry. Right, we've stopped next to a senna bush, which is what Jamie was looking at earlier. I don't know if hers had flowers. Did hers have flowers?
No.
No. Good. This one has flowers. You can see yellow flowers. And last year, this was one of the only plants that flowered in the drought. And there were lots and lots of beetles and things living on it. Now, the only thing I found here is a relatively dull but still very subtly beautiful jewel beetle, which is now flying away and is therefore going to be captured. Let's hope that it does not bite me. There it is, Viam. Can you see it? Beautiful. And it's got sort of sapphire colours. Oh, I can't. Can you see them? Mm-hmm. Beautiful blue sapphire colours, sort of false eyes on its elytra. And this one has met with some kind of accident. You can see that the elytra, or the hardened forewing, which has sort of formed a shell, it's not used as a wing anymore, has been damaged quite badly there. I'll just give you a little tickle, jewel beetle. It would look like a sapphire. Yes. You've even got sapphire coloured legs. That is brilliant. See if we can just get these legs. Did you get the legs in the sun, Vim? How's that? Beautiful, eh? That really is quite stunning. Don't worry, Mr. Jewel Beetle, I shall return you presently to where you live. Good. There we are. That was the only beetle I could find there. I was expecting to find a great number of fruit chaffers. I've given up on finding any form of mammal life now. We're just going to find small things. That's just how it has been this morning. Let us continue. We are in the clearing south of Chitwa Lodge. Now, apparently Tristan has also got something small he'd like to show you on Bushwalk.
We do, James. We have a very small little spider. So we have a golden orb web, but a small golden orb web. This is a little female. She's not nearly fully grown yet. She's still tiny, but still very, very, very pretty. They're absolutely beautiful spiders. And you can see on the web there, she has a whole bunch of little exoskeletons sewn into her web. And so the reason for that is basically to show the web to anything that walks through here. And it's actually how we spotted it, is instead of going through that, you notice that line there, which is quite distinct. And there you go, you can see them there. And so that's basically to show everybody, please don't walk through here. I've spun a web. Don't destroy my web. Leave it alone. So it's called a stabilimentum. That is the name for that stuff. And it depends on the spider. Some of them will do like these big, extravagant white X's in their web. The golden orb webs tend to just to spin a whole bunch of exoskeletons from prey items that they've already caught into a line like that and show them off. Now, we know that this is a female because of the bright coloration that she has. She's going to get much, much larger eventually. By the end of the summer, she'll probably be close to the size of my palm. So she's going to be huge. At the moment, if I put my finger close by, I don't want to disturb her web too much, but you can see she's still quite little. So she's got a lot of way to go. If you compare that to the size of my palm, you can imagine when she gets to that size how big she'll be. So she's got a long, long, long way to go. Now, I was looking on the web and hoping that I would find some other little organisms. So there is another spider that is often on orb webs. It's called a dewdrop spider, but I don't see any on this particular one, which is unfortunate. Alright, so while we admire our golden orb web, we're going to go back to James, who I believe has a rather slow race going on.
Right, we're sitting here with two Speaks-hinged tortoises, and they were having a bit of a fight on the road here. You can see, well, you can't see, but I can see just on the road there's been some kind of conflagration here. And there's the one. There you can see evidence in front. This, in the tortoise world, is hot pursuit. And apparently Eggsy, who's watching, he's back from leave. I thought he was on leave all the time myself, but he's back from leave now. Oh, what's he met with there? Eggsy has living underneath the salubrious tool shed that he lives in. He has living underneath that a Speaks-hinged tortoise, whose name is Gregory. Gregory is a girl, though, and Eggsy thinks that one of these could be his boyfriend, her boyfriend. But Eggsy, that's ridiculous, because this is Chitwa, and it would take a Speaks-hinged tortoise to get from here to the tool shed that you live in, well, probably about 4 years. Aha. As Rebecca says, long-distance relationships. That's quite sweet, look at them. I used to think tortoises were very, very sweet until I watched the Speaks-hinged tortoise fight with another one. They're not nice to each other. And then, of course, Gregory eats millipedes by the dozen. Surely Eggsy Gregory deserves a name that is not male? Maybe Gregorette? Gregorina? Eggsy says no, apparently it's Gregory. It doesn't need to have an identity crisis or be forced into some kind of patriarchal gender role. Thank you very much for that, Eggsy. Well reminded. Let's carry on from here. Winter Prism, I'd say not. You say, do tortoises ever lose their water when they're having a fight with each other? Now, many of you will know that tortoises, if you stress them, if you pick them up, if they think they're being preyed upon, they will void their bowels. Basically, they will empty their bowels, or they empty their little water sac that they have inside them, whose name I can never remember, but they basically will get rid of water in an attempt to frighten off or scare off the predator. And I don't think they do that with each other. I think it would be a waste, because of course they need that water when they're fighting with each other, and secondly they know that they're not they know that that's not going to have any effect on each other. They know what it is. It's not actually harmful at all. It's just kind of just a bit smelly and distasteful. So I think you'll find that they don't do it with each other. I think it's only as a last-ditch resort, if they think they're going to be eaten by something, that they will empty that bladder and void their bowels. There is no update from Cheetah Plains other than a few elephants heading into Kruger Park. No update on the lions in Buffelshoek, so I don't know what's going on there. No update here from Chitwa. So it's become a very sort of quiet Cat Tuesday. And that's absolutely fine. Why shouldn't it be? We're going to go slowly back towards the north, and we're going to do one more loop around past vaguely where we thought Karula might be. And we'll see if we don't get very lucky there. And Brendan, you're wondering about canids like blackback jackals and how often we see them. We don't see them often at all, Brendan. They are not common around here. Every so often one will come down to a kill, but I think it's quite strange because, you know, like I often say, we're at a place I used to work called Ngala. Every single clearing there was had a pair of blackback jackals that lived in it. Now I'm just driving slowly through here because I think we might lose signal. Rebecca, how are we doing? Are we alright? Who knows? Let's carry on. I don't see a great deal of action going on in this area, but that's alright. As I was saying, we can't always have the action. Ooh, what is this flower? Totally scentless flower. You see this, Wimpy? Beautiful purple flower. Looks like it could be a member. No, I don't know that it is. Of the nightshade. Assassin bug. Can you see this, Vim? Got it?
Yep.
I'm not going to pick that up. I've never been stung by one, but Steph assures me it is a deeply, deeply painful experience. And I don't know which kind of assassin this is, but its coloration is enough to tell you that whatever it is, it will give you a very nasty bite. It might be a millipede assassin, but I don't think so. That's brilliant. Every time you stop out here, you will find something in summertime. The same cannot be said for winter, or nor can it be said for a cloudy day like we had yesterday.
Brent says it's a millipede assassin.
Brent says it's a millipede assassin, does he? Is Brent fixing his car?
I hope so.
How can Brent possibly be seeing what we are seeing? Right, Tristan apparently is gazing at some plants and he would like to gaze at them with you.
James, you are more than welcome to come and join me under our shady little canopy here, which is quite pleasant in here actually. But the reason why we've stopped is because this particular section that we're in is quite interesting. If you have a look around me, you'll notice that there is no grass where we are. It's quite shady, but there is no grass whatsoever. So the reason why is because we are in the middle of a tamburti thicket. So a tamburti is this tree that I'm standing up against here. And this tree is quite an interesting one in that it will dominate an area by utilizing two different strategies. The first thing is that they tend to grow very, very close to one another. So you'll find that they end up creating a canopy that blocks sunlight out from other plants. And so you find that generally around them there's very little that grows because there's very little sunlight that actually gets to the soil. The second reason is if I pick one of these leaves you'll see on the edge of this leaf a little bit of white latex that's coming out. Now that milky latex is very, very toxic, and so when the leaves fall to the ground, often there will be some sort of residue that will be left behind, and those toxic little bits of milk basically will start to poison the ground on other trees, and so it'll stop grasses and other plants growing effectively in this area, and so that's why the tambuti can then dominate. Now this little latex, when we see it like this, is actually useful for people. Alright, if you take a little drop like this, and particularly for Craig, who I believe is going back to the dentist tomorrow, it might be useful for him when he gets back, because what they did with this is they used to take a drop of this latex and they put it on their toothache, and they say that it deadens the pain. Now I'm too scared to try it because this particular toxin is actually quite bad. I've seen things go quite wrong with tambutis, and people often use the log on a fire, and they inhale that smoke and it makes you violently ill. So if you ingest enough of these leaves, it can kill you. So playing a game with drops of latex on your teeth seems like not the wisest idea. I would probably think it's better that Craig trusts the dentist and gets an anesthetic from him rather than playing games with tambutis. But they are a really, really interesting tree in that they've become highly, highly endangered because of their wood. Inside this tree, even though it looks quite sort of drab on the outside and grey, it has the most beautiful wood inside. It is very, very pretty. It's got a light wood with generally a very dark heartwood in it, and it smells really, really good. So if you cut this tree, it almost smells a bit like sandalwood. So those of you who know what sandalwood smells like, that's what the tambuti wood smells like, and it holds its scent for really long periods of time. You can smell it years after it's been cut, and so it made it really popular for furniture usage. And unfortunately, because of that, they got absolutely mowed down. And so in South Africa, they've now become a protected species. You can't cut these trees down, and so their populations are actually coming back quite nicely. In areas like we are in these Kruger National Park areas, there's really quite big blocks of it. The biggest section I've ever seen was over a hectare, square hectare, and really, really large. So they are coming back, but really cool trees to have around. And interestingly enough, the animals, like the nyala that we saw just now, which were actually, funny enough, standing right where I am now, those nyala eat this, and they eat it because it basically acts like a purgery to the system. They basically get rid of all of the stuff that they cannot digest by eating this. It makes them go to the toilet effectively, and that's basically how they use it. So even though for us as people we can't consume it, the animals for some reason are not affected, and you'll find nyala, kudu, giraffe, bushbuck, black rhinos, elephants will all feed off this, which is quite interesting. Alright, but we're going to carry on. Enough standing in the shade, time to do a little bit of a walk and to see what else we can find. It was just quite pleasant being in here. As we came up, there was a little bit of a breeze that came up, and so a really nice place just to stand. While we've been sitting here, there's been lots of birds chirping. We've had some grey hornbills that have been around. They've been calling quite a bit. You can actually hear them now. So that's them busy talking at the moment. They've been following us around and kind of going at it. And there's been some grey go-away birds that have also been following us, and they've been squawking quite a bit. Now generally when the grey go-away birds start squawking, that there's often a disturbance, so it must be from us more than anything else that's causing that. I was hoping that it would be something maybe along the lines of a predator, but we've looked around and there's really no sign, so I'm pretty sure that we walking here has disturbed them. So, Soraya, sorry, I didn't get the question whole, but I'll just try and see if I got it, and Rebecca can update me if I got it wrong. But you were asking whether or not there's any diseases transmitted by birds. Is that correct, Rebecca? Yeah. Okay, so any diseases that are transmitted from birds to humans. In this particular area that we're in, not that I've seen. Obviously, if people consume things like chicken that's not been refrigerated properly, they can get salmonella and food poisoning. But generally, no, there's not too many birds that transfer diseases. But there is bird flu, which is transmitted by birds in other parts of the world. But here, none that I really know of. I haven't been able to pick up anything. Although, things like vultures will sometimes carry anthrax spores on them. So when they go and feed off a carcass that's infected by anthrax, they then come along So we just got one of the vehicles coming in behind us here. They're also still looking around for any sign of krill in the cubs. But yeah, so vultures will feed off carcasses with anthrax. The spores get on them, and if you go and then pick up their feathers, you can potentially contract that anthrax from them. So they're probably the only one that you'd really have to be really careful of out here. The rest of them are not too bad. Alright, so given that vehicle's gone past us now, we're going to still carry on and try and see and loop back and see what we can find. But we found a beautiful flower. Since James was looking at flowers, there's a beautiful little hibiscus. So unfortunately it's not massive yet. It's still going to grow quite a lot more than what it is now. It's still quite small, but it's going to open out and be very big. Eventually it will probably get to about that size when it is fully grown. So very, very pretty little flower. And there was a little beetle that was inside there harvesting all that nectar that you can see there, and those little pollen spores, but flew away when I bent down to have a look. But it is quite pretty how many flowers there are at the moment. Last year we really struggled with flowers in the drought, so it's quite nice to see them. Hopefully we'll get a bit more rain, and then you get these kind of flashes of flowers after the rain. It's been a bit quiet in the last day or two. It's getting quite dry again. We were actually commenting about it as we were walking, that the bush has changed its tone. It was very vibrant and bright green last week, and it's almost dulled off a little bit, and it's starting to get quite dry again. And the grass itself is starting to turn a little bit more brown. So, I think a little bit of rain would be really quite necessary for us to get that kind of vivid green that we want, and to get a little bit more growth, because we still haven't had quite enough to satisfy our needs for the winter months. And I've been trying to search for more birds to be able to keep our list going. And while calls are really nice to hear, and it's good to have them around us while we walk, they unfortunately have not been in anywhere where we can film them, so they don't count, which is a bit disconcerting. I had Brent in my ear just now telling me about the fact that I'm behind, and reminding me that I need to up my game. So it'd be nice to find some birds somewhere along the line here. So Raquel, you see us touching a lot of leaves, and you see us messing around with quite a few plants, and you want to know if there's any parasites or any sort of things that we can pick up from the plants. Well, parasites, not really, unless there's things like ticks on a piece of grass that we pick up. You could potentially find a blister beetle on a tree. By mistake you grab a leaf and the blister beetle's on the backside, and you could get nasty blisters from that, or assassin bugs or something like that that could spray some sort of chemical on you and hurt you that way, or bite you. But in terms of actually parasites that live on the trees that can infect your health, not too many. Most of these things you'd have to ingest them. So just by touching, there's no transference through our skin and onto our bloodstream. So you'd have to ingest it or inhale it.
Very nice. And two sort of whiskers almost, like a moustache. Looks like a Chinese kung fu master. Don't you think, Vim? Let me turn him round so you can see the front of his face, and you can see that he looks like a Chinese kung fu master. See that? He looks a bit like the Chinese kung fu master from what was that film with Uma Thurman in it?
Kung Fu Panda.
No, not Kung Fu Panda. Although that one will work. Very good. I think you should go and live in the bushes. There you are. And I'm afraid Jamie is definitely out of commission for the rest of the drive, along with Wendy, and gooseberries it is for them for the foreseeable future. Now, I obviously cannot leave this piece of tissue paper out here, but the caterpillar has fallen onto the ground, where hopefully it will not be devoured by a bird. Now we've come back to Djuma. just in the hopes that Karula perhaps is on a patrol around this way. I don't know. I mean, that's just blind. Would be blind luck if we find her. But it couldn't be any. I mean, look, the strategy couldn't turn out any worse than our actual tracking strategy this morning. And I would keep an eye on that damn camera for the duration of the day. And the zoomy should stay wide as possible, as I think those cats are going to pop out around about there sometime today. I think they're definitely around there somewhere. I don't see where else they could be, the little ones I mean. I think Mum dropped them off, and I think when we heard the monkey's alarm calling this morning, that was Mum leaving them, walking across the dam wall, up past Inga's, over quarantine and off to the west, which is kind of where we're heading now. That's our general plan. And to just find some form of mammal life. That's also our other general plan. I would really like to see some mammal life, wouldn't you, Viam? Other than Jamie and David, I mean. I suppose we did have some nice hippos and things. Let's see what is in this pile of dung. Should never leave a pile of dung uninvestigated, I feel. Well, we had an African joker. We have many flies, fruit flies. Let's see if we've got any dung beetles yet. Not many dung beetles. But we do have marulas. And I've no doubt Stefan Winterboer would quite happily eat this marula. I am not going to eat this marula. But I am going to open it up just to see, because the skin hasn't actually been broken here. So although that's fresh elephant dung, which doesn't smell great. Although it has passed through the digestive system of the elephant, I don't think that it had touched the teeth. It did not touch the teeth, but it has rotted. So it's gone quite rotten inside. You know that kind of rotting fruit dustbin smell that you get? That's what it smells like inside. It's passed through the digestive system, and apparently most of these things do have to do that before they're actually able to germinate. But I don't think this thing was broken at all. But whether the digestive enzymes on the skin are sufficient to give it the kick it needs to go into life, I don't know. Interesting. Right. Viam, it's going to be an enormous marula tree here in about 20 years, right next to that one, yeah. Correct. Right, on we go. I must remember to wash my hands, of course, before I have my breakfast. Come on, there must be a mammal around here somewhere. Perhaps a bird. Or is it to be just little things until we get home? There's a butterfly, which is going to be impossible to get on camera. That was a monarch. No. There's a bird, Viam. It's a fork-tailed drongo. Do you see it? It is there. It is up and to the left. No, it's there. I see it. Up and left. There. Down a bit. There it is. The forked-tailed drongo, everybody. Great mimicker of other birds. Well, it likes to sing other birds' songs. It's a little bit like it's like that friend of yours who likes to sing greatly but really isn't very good at it. You know that person in your life? We all have one in our lives. And that drongo is a bit like that person. It is unable to sing tunefully to the tune of other birds, but it does make valiant attempts. And its favourite is a very poor impression, in my opinion, of the pearl-spotted owl. So where the pearl-spotted owl goes... the fork-tailed drongo goes. It's pathetic. Morning Glory, you had a question or a comment. What was it again? Oh, Morning Glory, you think we should go and track the elephant where that marula came from? Well, Morning Glory, that's not a bad idea, except for the fact that that was very ice-cold dung, meaning, Okay, we're going to try this, everybody. There's a European golden oriole that just flew into a tree here. I've yet to get one on camera. You see the... It's flown away again. You see the tall tree there? At the backish there? Yeah, that one. Just have a look in there, Viam. It flew in there. And normally they just don't land for more than 3.5 seconds at a time. They are the most irritating birds we get out here, but they're also one of the most beautiful. Morning Glory, that elephant track is not young. It went to the loo sometime during the coolth of last night. Betty C, while we look at all the birds here, and I'm just going to scan that very tall marula tree over there, Viam. You say, do we get blue jays and red robins here? We don't get red robins or blue jays here. We get lots and lots of different robin species, but no blue jays. And I'm not sure which, I think the blue jays are related to the tits, aren't they? But you'll find that there's quite a large, oh, there it is. I can't believe it. I've got it. Top right, top left. See that left-hand ball of tree there, Viam? He's in there. He's hiding in there. It may even be an African golden oriole. There's a dove to the far left. Are you in full stretch there? Okay, I can see it. It's right in the middle. I can just see it hopping around there. Let's just keep watching there if you don't mind. Betty, see, you'll find that a lot of the birds in the New World, in other words, in North and South America, have got very distant relatives in the Old World, and sometimes almost no relatives whatsoever. I don't know about the blue jay or what family it belongs to, but we don't get them here. Well, that oriole is in there. There, it's hopping around the back. Did you see that, Vim?
Not really.
Hopping way at the back. I'm going to go back slightly. Just see if we can't coax him out. I promise it'll be worth it if we can get him. It may even be an African golden oriole. I can see it. I can just see this little flash of yellow. I don't think we're going to see it. You're at full stretch, have you?
Was.
You were. Let's have one last look in there over the top of this gap. Yeah, it's there. Alright, where it's on the far right hand side of that bobble of tree that you can see there. Yeah, just go to the right. To the right of right. Yeah, it's behind that tree there. Let me go very slightly forward. No, more. I know this is a little bit boring, everybody, but really, I promise you, if we can get this bird, it'll be worth it. Go down a bit. I know I can't see my monitor. There, now you'll see a flash of yellow in there somewhere. Keep going down a little. No. It's in there. Oh, bird, why? Thou so irksome. Oh, it'll be a first, everyone. There's the dove. Right, Jamie seems to be on her merry way. Let's go and find out how that's going with her.
A not so merry way, because I didn't get any strawberries with my rescue party, and neither did Dave, and we're both utterly devastated. But sorry about that, everyone. We are leaving Rusty, lonely, bereft, directionless, quite literally. And off we go back home in Jigger once again. It's been a long time since we've been out in Jigger. Some interesting sounding brake noises there. I went on a desperate search. This is the most barren section of Djuma. We could not find a single insect, anything to try and show you. Even the butterflies kept avoiding us, didn't they, Dave? Yeah. So we tried valiantly to search for something to show you that was not another piece of grass or another plant, but unfortunately we did not have any success. But luckily for us, Jigger seems to be up and running, and so you get to see us for the last few minutes while we abandoned Rusty. Sorry, bye. Oh, so a relatively unsuccessful morning. We didn't find the hyenas, and then we broke Rusty. We didn't break Rusty. That damage was done. I accept no responsibility for that. We'll get a mechanic to come out a little bit later, and we'll all head out and try and fix her and bring her back home. Just hope we don't find her hijacked by some monkeys or something like that, or tires chewed by the hyena cubs. We were on our way to the den. We were on our way to Gwen's den when we broke down. I'm just waving at one of the other vehicles. James has been trying to show you a bird. I'm just trying to see if this one... No. I was going to try and show you a bee-eater, but it did not want to land in any close proximity. Oh, Dave, we'll try again this afternoon. Yes, we will. Hopefully in Rusty, but possibly in Jigger. There's also a very, very ominous cracking sound that came when we were desperately trying to get our picture up and running, and we leant on the passenger seat together, and I think the combined mass of Dave and myself may have broken Jigger's passenger seat. Thoroughly unsuccessful. Thomas, you want to know, when we're not doing these live safaris, what interesting things do we do in our spare time? We go for walks occasionally. We go, depending on how hot it is, of course. Nobody really wants to walk through the bush in the middle of the heat of the day. I go for walks, look at trees, look at plants. We read a lot on the various animals and the different subjects that we're interested in. And we have picnics. We have a picnic planned on Thursday, which happens to be Geraldine's birthday. I think she's only reminded me twice this morning. No, it's Jerry's birthday, so we're going to have a picnic in the Mulwati drainage line, in the shade and on the sand, and some blankets. The boys sometimes play touch rugby, although it's been a long time since there was a touch rugby game on quarantine. It has been very warm, though. Hasn't really been conducive to it. Some of the people go running around quarantine. I personally don't go running on the reserve because I don't know. It just takes one little thing to go wrong. One little animal to pop out where it shouldn't be. Here's a pretty bird. Oh goodness, let me try and stop with the clutch, not the brake. Since Dave and myself have been so bereft of animal life, there we go. There is a beautiful European roller sitting, most unfortunately, on a power line, which they love to do. They often sit on the power lines, the kingfishers and the rollers. Gives them a nice vantage point. It doesn't bother them, and they can sit up there and spot insects, or sit up there and call, as this one is doing. The prettiest family of birds with the ugliest call. Yeah. Well, that went very quickly, Dave. We worked hard. Apparently, there's only a minute left of our sunrise safari, and so that brings us to the end. We'll try again with the hyena den. I'm still convinced it's there. We just have to keep searching for it, and I have no doubt that Karula is going to turn up at some point during the day, probably somewhere unexpected, probably in the opposite direction to where everybody's been searching for her, because that's just what she does. Right, on that note, it's time to do our goodbyes and our thank yous. Thank you, Dave, for keeping me company. And thank you to the lovely ladies in Final Control, to the rescue mission that came to save us, Brent and Eggsy, and most importantly, a big thank you to all of you. I do hope that you had a lovely sunrise safari and that you enjoyed what you saw. We will see you on the sunset safari this afternoon. Until we do see you, I hope you have a marvelous time and thank you for joining us. We'll see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.